Brian Pumper checks in. We're going to dive back into this game. Appreciate everybody, by the way, in the chat. Hit that like button today. It's been a great show. And Zander Claus will be here again. All right, so we'll do another giveaway. Appreciate everybody. Brian Pumper says, heard the Commanders running back called the Eagles weak sauce.
He did.
Jalen Hurts led team with getting a lot of respect from the ops. ICIs.
That's interesting. Brian Robinson did come out and say some things that would be considered bulletin board material. If that were, I think that's another thing that's overrated. But it's a little bit surprising. Probably you got a talking to from Dan Quinn. You never want to stir the hornet's nest. But yeah, he thought, thought that it's a lot of things. Like basically he was essentially saying he thinks we feel like we have the better team. Basically, I don't have the exact quote, but paraphrasing, he basically said we feel like we have the better team. Now, what do you expect him to say? Oh, let's bow down at the genuflect at the the first place team. If they don't feel that way, who is going to feel that way? You want players who are competent in themselves. For most objective observers, that's kind of silly. But again, what do you expect a player to say? It's what you want from your players. Yeah, I think we're going to go win the game. I think we're the better team.
Is it a clear case of bulletin board material, or do you not believe in that?
No, I don't think. I think all the players realize same thing I just said. All right, if you don't believe in yourself, who the freak is going to believe in you? So, I'm amazed why people get so upset about that. Hey, the player on the opposition thinks his team's going to win. Shocker. News at 11. What do you want? Caleb Williams moping? Oh, we got no shot. Have you ever heard that, by the way? Anyone? Even from Caleb Williams? Can somebody point to me to a player saying even the worst team in the league going, hey, we got no shot this weekend? He's probably getting cut pretty quickly. So I wouldn't take it as Brian Robinson really believes it, but, talk up your guys.
Good stuff there. Look at SM Day, our great. She's been here since 50 subscribers. She says glazed Jayden donuts for breakfast this morning on JAKIB Media. You gotta be kidding me, SM Day. That is some bullshit coming from you. But I appreciate it. Speaking of it, though, let's talk about that Commanders offense, John. I said it. They're 5th. We're 6th. All right. All this talent on the Eagles offense. Why are they better than us? I don't like that. Scoring offense, they're 6th in the NFL. Eagles are 8th in the NFL. Passing offense, they're 16th in the NFL at 218 yards per game. And their rushing offense is 3rd in the NFL behind just the Eagles. And I guess I think the Ravens are number 2 in rushing offense. So a pretty good offense, John. They're working with a pretty good offense over there in Washington this year.
Yeah, I can't help it. People don't want honesty. I mean, he's had a better season.
I don't know if I buy that. I'm sorry. I don't think I do.
I don't know how you can argue it, to be honest. I mean, unless you want to micro to one game. And again, you can't just expand one game out into 14.
Yeah, but isn't it fair to say that the context of the teams that those players are on are asking them to be different people, different players?
Of course. I talk about it all the time. There's no vacuum. I mean, one of the things I love about PFF is the fact that if fans love when Jordan Mailata is number 1 or Zach Bond's number 2 or insert name, Lane Johnson's number 5, whatever he is, whatever. They have so many top 10 players. And then they lose their flipping minds and they don't like Jalen Hurts. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, but
the guy, as we always talk about this as a week-to-week league. He was phenomenal against Washington. Are you going to go through every game and say that quarterback played phenomenally? Are you going to go through every game and say, we're talking about this all year?
Yeah, but
And what's wrong with the
enough.
offense?
Our team is good enough. Like, I'm not going to dock Jalen Hurts because we have a great football team. Since the bye week, he's got one
Why are you
interception.
docking Jayden Daniels for not having that great football team?
Well, no, I'm just saying his team requires him to be a different player, just like the Bills require Josh Allen to be a different player.
And that's why you look at the grades from snap to snap. Look, he's had a better season. It's not close. It's not close. It's not flipping close. When you got 5 versus 19, it's not close. If it were 5 versus 7, 5 versus 8, 2 versus 4, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Jalen Hurts has not had a great individual season. I'm sorry if that upsets people.
It doesn't upset me, but I mean, I'm just, like I said, I think the team is so dynamic in so many areas.
That's a different conversation.
I agree,
We were
but
talking
Jalen,
about
within his role, though, 26 touchdowns since the bye week and 3 turnovers, a very good quarterback rating, a very good completion percent. Like, I think in his role on his team, he is doing great. I mean, I get it. Jayden's been better because he needs to do more.
Boy, I'm surprised. Now I have to go. For weeks, I would have to talk you back from Jalen Hurts stinks, and now I got to talk you back from
that. But I had questions about the passing.
I mean, I don't get the bipolar nature of this. Look, the fact that they scaled back the fucking offense is not positive. That is not positive. No matter how many ways you want to spin it, and that's what Nick's been trying to do. No matter how many ways, I'm not the one who scaled the offense back. You and Kellen Moore did. And you scaled it back because you thought this ain't working. And by the way, I think they overreacted to that as well. I hate when I have to be the voice of reason because people are going to be pissed at me all day. I'm going to get all this hate mail.
I hope nobody gives you hate. John. Your voice of reason is the reason that people like this show. So
I just don't. He was phenomenal last week. That doesn't erase the first 13 games. That doesn't erase the fact that this team had to go. Whether the Jay Glazer bullshit that everyone was worried about, or his personal relationship, or all that bullshit, that none of that matters. What matters is they said, Jesus, we got to go lean on Saquon Barkley. I didn't say that. They said that. That's not a freaking positive. And if you want to play up, it's AJ Brown's fault. Go ahead, Devon. I don't believe that. I think AJ is playing at a high level.
Is it fair to speculate that it's less about the deficiencies of another area of your team and more about you have the best offensive line in football and the best running back in football? It's probably a pretty good idea to rely on them.
No.
All right.
Because that's not what they wanted. That is not what they wanted.
So if you're all right. So you saying all right. So Jayden Daniels, you're saying, is having a better year than Jalen Hurts. If you started a football team today and you had to pick between one of those two quarterbacks, would you take Jayden or Jalen?
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's not even a point. That's less of a conversation.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that is a super talent right there in Washington. Super talent. You saw a lot of room to grow again, particularly in that, and that's going to complicate things as well because I don't like the matchup against the Eagles because of Vic Fangio and Vic Fangio's ability to manipulate young quarterbacks. But he doesn't have to play Vic Fangio every week. And as he progresses, and there's always a concern, obviously health is a big part of it, but just from the template of the skill set, yeah, I mean, this is a superstar template guy. You got everything. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it is different. Obviously, there are different stages of their career. Jalen Hurts is a more finished product. Jalen Hurts has a better supporting cast. Um, Again, it's nobody. What was Washington's record last year?
That's a good question. I'll look it up real quick.
They were one of the worst teams in the NFL. I know that because they got Jayden Daniels.
They were 4-13.
I mean, it's
Now they
not
also
even,
have like 50% new starters, though. I mean, they did a revamp on their.
well, they had, yeah. I mean, they obviously added Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu. They added. They've added a lot, but I don't know. Like, I get it. People don't watch him every game. I mean, the guy's been pretty fucking good. What are we talking about here? What are we doing? What look at the season the guy is having because he had a bad game against the Eagles and Vic Fangio. He's garbage. You're gonna have to deal with this quarterback for 10 years.
You're right. I mean, listen, we're gonna know sooner or later. We got to.
There's going to be if he stays healthy, and you never know. I mean, RG3 is a perfect example. In the same time, who was phenomenal early and got hurt. If he stays healthy, there's going to be a lot of reparations toward me over the next 10 years because this guy's going to be a freaking problem.
I'm not saying he's not a great player. I'm just saying I think at this point right now, I'm not buying that he's better than Jalen Hurts. Now,
I said he has a better season.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So then do you put the success of Jalen Hurts since he's been in the league more on the team then than you would the player?
No, well, it depends. This year, yes. 2022, no. I mean, he hasn't played the same way. I say it all the time. It's not a vacuum. It doesn't stay in stasis. Everybody improves. Some people devolve. Right now, this offense, remember when everybody was yelling at me about motion and play scheming and how Kellen Moore can scheme open receivers and you're going to see this. Where did that go? They devolved to less than they were last year where they were with Brian Johnson. Where are those people?
I have a hard time saying the Commanders quarterback's better than the Eagles. That might be my Eagle-colored glasses.
But that's not what I said. I said Jayden Daniels is having a better season.
Well, you just told me he's a super talent is the word you used.
You said me if I were starting a team, does he have a better skill set?
Isn't that simply put? I think he's a better player.
No, because starting a team is you're going to be, in theory, you're going to be worse. Starting a team from scratch, that's an expansion team. So you want the guy who's going to be able to make plays by himself. Jalen can do that as well. But the template, I mean, there's a reason one guy's the second overall pick and one guy's, in the second round. I mean, if we're going to talk about just physical gifts.
Yeah, I got you.
Now, Caleb Williams has more physical gifts than Jalen Hurts. But so what? I'm not a Caleb Williams fan. It's more than just the physical gifts, but the physical gifts are a big part of it.
I'm not mad at you for liking the player. I like the player too. He's a good player. He's clearly a very good player. I think that he showed that by the way he's turned around the Commanders. But I don't know. I have a hard time gauging, and I don't know if many other people deal with this, but this is where I'm at, right? Because I understand the conversation of wanting an elite quarterback or the top talent quarterback. And I understand people are like, Jalen's not that. He's not Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, or he doesn't throw the ball like that. I get it. He doesn't have that skill set, but it's hard for me to look past the success that we've had with Jalen Hurts. And that's where I go, do I care more about the talented player or the elite quarterback, or how do I gauge or judge the success that Jalen Hurts has had? Like, what's more important? Because you see a lot of players that have ultimate talent, but don't ever get the job done. And then you see players that maybe don't have that top tier talent, but continue to win at a high level. And I think that's Jalen Hurts. It's tough for me to gauge those two categories.
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, one of the dumbest quarterback conversations ever is so and so has talent around him. Well, you can't win without talent around you. From Tom Brady on down, you can't win if you don't have a good supporting cast. So that's baked into it. Um, I don't hold the Eagles supporting cast against Jalen Hurts at all, even remotely. Um, in fact, I thought coming in, I thought he was going to elevate Saquon Barkley, not the opposite way, the other way around. I
Well, to
thought
be
he,
fair, I think they've both benefited because Saquon does have the benefit of Jalen being able to pull it, and that defense that scares defenses.
yeah, but I thought it would be more noticeable. I'll say that. I mean, clearly one guy's had more of an impact, and it's Saquon. I expected the opposite.
Yeah, but
You know,
how many of those explosive runs from Saquon have come on a read option where Jalen pulls, the linebacker bites on the Jalen pull, and Saquon has one less man to beat?
well, I mean,
I'm not saying that Saquon's not great. I'm just saying I do think that
now we're
Jalen.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I think Jalen does help Saquon.
um, well, I think the offense when we're talking about Saquon, I think it's more of the offensive line. But again, I'll go back. Has this offense devolved from week 4 or not? From where they wanted to be?
Passing wise, yes.
What? So why are we having this conversation?
All right.
No offense to you.
No,
I
I'm not.
mean,
I don't take any offense to it. Don't worry.
what I mean, to me, it's so blatantly freaking obvious from all the talk, and I get because nobody cares. Ultimately, when you win a game, nobody cares. Nobody cares. But if this team was um even 9 wins, same as the Commanders, good team, not a great team. If they're 9-5, people are losing their fucking minds over this offense, the same offense. Even Saquon at historically. So the offense is exact same. The defense is where we thought it would be, 15-20, and they're 9-5. They're a good team, not a great team. People would be losing their minds over this offense and the way it's performing with this talent. Losing their minds. The winning is masking that. Now, last week was fine, Pittsburgh, but so many games have been, again, 118 yards in Baltimore, 83 net passing yards, 83 net passing yards against the Carolina Panthers with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. 83 net passing yards. What is this, Army?
Yeah, I know, but Jared Goff won a game this year with 85 passing yards.
Oh boy.
I'm not trying to dismiss your point because I was the one you just told me. I was the one who was hard on Jalen after that performance, rightfully so. But doesn't that not tell the full story?
There was the one game where Detroit. So you're right in the standpoint of week to week. You can't expound 1 week into 15 weeks or vice versa. The larger sample size.
Right.
That was just the floor. The week prior, they threw for 118 yards. I forget the net.
Yeah.
It was less than that. It was more than 1 week. It's been pretty consistent since the bye week, the exception of Cleveland to a certain extent, the exception of Pittsburgh. Low level passing game. What are they ranked in passing? 28th. They were 31st.
Yeah.
Before that week. They're 31st of 32 teams, and part of that is yes, the running game has been effective, but they didn't want to be that. They didn't want to be that. They wanted to be Detroit. That's what they wanted to be. We can do this, we can do that, we can do whatever the freak we need to do, and maybe they end up there. But they haven't been there. They were there against Pittsburgh to a certain level. But again, you can't take 1 week and assume that's going to be every week in this league. I don't know how anybody sees and what they were trying to do in the offseason, what this fan base was sold in the offseason about evolving the offense, evolving the quarterback, scheming guys open,
Yeah, but has it just
motion.
taken longer than we expected? Like, and this is where I'm coming from now because you just told me you had to talk me off the ledge on Hurts. And yes, I did have questions about the passing game and whether he could do it. But I also just watched us go up against one of the best defenses in the NFL. They basically completely almost took Saquon Barkley out of the game, one of the first teams to do it this year. And we needed to win the game on the arm of the quarterback. I watched him do it at a very high level. I'm not saying that he doesn't have some deficiencies there. I watch the game with my own two eyes. I see them like everybody sees them, but we're versatile. We won the game. Like when we needed him to do it, we won the game. And all the other games that he threw for 118 or whatever it was, we still won the game because that's what they needed him
Yeah,
to
but
do.
we're having a different conversation now. That's fine. That's what obviously they're a very good team. They were on the field for 43 defensive snaps. They had negative. They had 2 yards in the first quarter. They had negative yards on the first 5 drives. I mean, the defense had something to do with stifling the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. And the defense deserves
Oh,
more
definitely.
credit than the offense on this team, to be
Well,
honest.
the offense only gave the Steelers offense two
The
drives in the second half,
the
John.
original premise of this conversation, and all I said is Jayden Daniels is having a better season than Jalen Hurts. And now we're talking about, well, the defense and this and that and that. Yeah, they're fucking good. But I'm saying that the specific conversation of it's Jalen Hurts. Forget about Jayden Daniels. Forget about anybody else because people have trouble giving. I get it, giving props to a rookie player because he hasn't done it and this and that, and he's only been here for a short time, and he's not. And he doesn't have the greatest supporting cast, and all that kind of conversation. Picture Jayden Daniels on this offense. Where would this offense be? That's the best. You can't know. We'll never know.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have the same things that Jalen Hurts has. And that was the only conversation. And I don't know how people can argue that limited part of the conversation that Jayden Daniels has had a better overall season than Jalen Hurts. Doesn't even mean he's a better quarterback. It means he's had a better season.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go to some super chats here. We got a bunch of them. I appreciate everybody checking in. We had a super chat goal today of 20 of them, and we have 15 of our goals. So big thanks to all of you guys for making that happen and our new members. So we will do another giveaway today at the end of the show. So make sure you stay tuned. Any giveaways that happen on the fly, like today, like yesterday, and like Monday, and Tuesday, you'll have to be present. Okay. So make sure you guys stay locked in with us through the end of the show, and we'll do another giveaway for our great members. So we appreciate you guys for doing that and help us reach our super chat goal. We're 5 away. And Martine checks in. Eagles seems more close knit. That scuffle with Slay compared to last year when Debo called Bradbury trash and the Niners came to the link and bumped into him pregame and no one did anything. I think he's talking about how they responded this year versus how they responded last year. The team does seem close knit right now, John. Now, I don't know what that means, but do you notice any difference in that this year compared to last year?
No, I don't. The same stuff with the Glazer stuff and when I laughed at that yesterday and the AJ challenge stuff, I kind of laughed off when Brandon said it. Same thing works on the other side. You know, they players fight on the field for all the time. Pregame, last, you don't want your guys fighting pregame. One of the things about the collapse, everybody wants these easy answers for the collapse, like Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Lane Johnson. There's no leadership. What happened? What happened from 10-1 to no leadership? Nobody's fighting for it. It's the same guys who've been tremendous leaders of this team. They got beat. They lost their confidence, and they had a bad defense. That explains last year's collapse. Now they have their confidence and they have a great defense. That explains this year's sustainability. I think it's really as simple as that, and it has nothing to do with close knit people visiting or not visiting Jalen's house.
Yeah, I do think there's a human element, though. I mean, you talk about that, right? I mean, maybe it's not as
A bunch of guys,
pronounced in a scenario like this, but
a bunch of guys are really close, and a bunch of guys are clicky, and a bunch of guys aren't close, and it's like any other workplace.
yeah, but it is the common goal. I feel like, and I feel like this is where Nick Sirianni deserves some credit. I do feel like even with the clicks and anything like that, which I know are inevitable, I think they're all fighting for a common goal. At least that's what it seems like. Maybe that's just the Eagles propaganda where they, they make the content
Well,
and
there
it's
are.
all great.
I think anytime you're really good, if you go to Kansas City, if you go to Detroit, if you go to Minnesota, um, the 13-1 team, the 3-12-2 teams, I mean, they're all fighting for a common goal because they can see the end.
Right.
Say, we're pretty freaking good. Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's keep rolling here.
That takes care of itself.
Yep. Mesmerized checks in. Mesmerized. Appreciate it, man. Is that Canadian dollars? You Canadian. I always chirp our Canadians, but we do have a lot of you guys who watch, so I appreciate you. I am not a Canada guy. USA. USA. All right, mesmerized. Here we go. Question for you.
Trudeau having a lot of problems up in Canada, by the way.
Is he? I don't even follow. I saw that. I saw that Trump was trolling, making them a 51st state or whatever the hell. I was cracking up at that. Biggest concern the rest of the way: consistency in the pass game or getting the 1 seed. I mean, if we get another bye, Dom and BG could have another meeting with Jalen.
Well, they evidently didn't have a meeting with Jalen, for those who don't know. But
like I said, who cares if they did or they didn't? It was the greatest meeting of all time. 10-0 since. What is your biggest concern?
Brandon, by the way, Brandon denied that and Jalen denied it. So
yeah, both denied.
I don't know where, but Jay's very good. So somebody told him that, but evidently it didn't happen. Either way, doesn't matter. Anyway, now I lost.
Just biggest concern the rest of the way for you. Is it pass game? Is it 1 seed?
Yeah, if you have consistency in the passing game, you can win on the road. I'm not concerned about the odds are against the number 1 seed. So, I mean, if things fall correctly, great. I think it would be very difficult for somebody to come in here and beat the Eagles. But I think they can win on the road as well if they get a consistent passing game. So the only thing you can control, they can win out and still not get the number 1 seed. Detroit and Minnesota actually both control their own destinies. And I know a lot of people say strength of victory, and understand if the Vikings win out, they're beating Green Bay and Detroit. So their strength of victory will go ahead of the Eagles, no matter what, because the Eagles are playing Dallas and the Giants after Washington. So they control their destiny. Detroit obviously controls their destiny. If they win out, the Eagles do not. So the Eagles will need some help. And, Minnesota is a very difficult schedule. It's not impossible. Most odds have them at 22, 25% maybe. But they can't control that. They can control the consistency of the passing game. And that would make them better equipped to move forward no matter where a potential NFC championship game might be.
Yeah, agreed. Good stuff, Mesmerized. I appreciate it, man, even if you're Canadian. Dirty Air checks in. What's up, Dirty Air? I got to respond to you, brother, but I appreciate you checking in. He says, so how different does this team look then with Kenny Pickett? Oh, God.
Well, I think they could win games with Kenny Pickett. Obviously, you're not.
I'm the number
it's
one.
It's interesting. I was talking to Merrill Reese. Merrill, who was it? Tim McManus and Martin Frank. We were all talking after the coordinator press conferences, and we're talking about who's the person you can afford to lose least from the Eagles, besides the quarterback. The quarterback's always number 1. That's obvious. And mine was I'm team AJ. I said AJ. I mean, it's it's AJ.
Yeah,
It's
they stink
AJ's
without
one.
him. They win games with him. I agree.
AJ's one. Lane's two. Because they stink without Lane as well for whatever reason. And then that so we did three. Everybody had Jalen first, but I did AJ Lane. A couple people had Saquon in there. But with Kenny Pickett, you could win games. We got into that conversation, but then you would come even more run centric. So, it would be all Saquon basically. And then he would become, and one said, well, what if you had Kenny Pickett out there? So I said, well, that's not fair because then Saquon becomes the most important guy. But then you're having two losses. So that's not a fair discussion. I'm saying the one loss is obviously Jalen Hurts. Anytime you lose your starting quarterback, and I think Eagles fans are a little bit spoiled for that because the assumption is, oh, you're going to have a backup and come in to win the Super Bowl, which doesn't happen very often. And that shows you how special that season was. They would have to play a different, but I'll tell you this. They could win games with Kenny Pickett, and they could win a lot of games with Kenny Pickett, but they'd have to play a certain way, even more than the way they were playing, where it was complete and total run game.
Oh, Kenny Pickett, we'd be 5-7 or whatever.
No freaking way. No way.
5-9.
No way. No
Pickett's
way.
stiff. I don't like
team.
Did you hear Slay say that they used Pickett? He prepared them for the Steelers defense very well. Thought that was interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was a starting quarterback for 2 years, essentially.
Yeah.
He won 14. He won 14. You're talking about wins. He won 14 games and lost 10. Now, not great like Jalen. It's pretty fucking good for a backup quarterback. And you have that running game. I'll say this. If the catastrophe happened and Jalen Hurts was injured early in the season, the Eagles would still be a playoff team with Kenny Pickett. That's how good their supporting cast is. But obviously you're talking about a 7 seed, 6-7 seed versus a potential number 1 seed.
Brian Pumper checks in. Facts, J-Mac. Jalen Hurts has been buns for 13 games. Xander, I'm disappointed in you.
I knew Brian. I knew I had one guy in my corner.
I
knew Brian would be in my corner.
I'm not going to praise a guy who specializes in push-tush.
No, yeah, Jalen's and that's my concern. Like, I'm not on Brian's side. I knew he'd be behind me. Jalen's a very good player. The limited, I wish everybody could take everything the way it was. The question was, who's having a better season? Jayden Daniels or Jalen Hurts? And that's not close. Now, was Jayden Daniels' 2024 season better than Jalen Hurts' 2022 season? No. He's having a better season this year.
That's fine. I'm done with that stupid fucking convo. But Brian, I appreciate you. You're pretty good super chatter. I appreciate the support of the channel as always, man. SMD checks in, and SMD, before I read it, said that this is super chat for the great Krause's coat drive. We're on pace for 25,000 coats this year, well over 300,000.
Oh, we're going to need them because it's going to be cold this weekend.
People are going to need them, and that's why it's all the more important. So we have a big coat drive this weekend, this Saturday at the Veterans Shelter. We'll do that. So SMD, thanks. Johnny Mac, I think she's ripping you here, so you can't be too mean to her back because it's a coat drive donation. All right, Johnny Mac went from embrace the uniqueness of Hurts to bending the knee and becoming a silly parrot. Come on, Johnny Mac.
Well, that's harsh.
That is harsh.
Eagles. No, I don't think you're listening to the conversation because it was very defined, but hey, whatever.
SMD, we appreciate that. Brian Pumper again. Xander, if Hurts had Jordan Davis's face, you would call him ass. Be real, Big Z. I don't know. If Jordan Davis has had much of an impact on winning as Jalen Hurts, then I probably wouldn't call him ass, Brian Pumper. Brian, how long have you been an Eagles fan? How many years have you watched the team win at this rate? You know, like anybody that's an Eagles fan knows it. You don't win like this all the time. Like this isn't an every year thing. We're spoiled. We win so fucking much. Now we need to get the job done. I don't think you're wrong about that. Will I criticize Jalen when I don't think he's good? Sure, I will. And I have this year. John just got done telling you he had to walk me off the ledge. But I think it's hard to look at it and just say he's not ass, dude. He's a good player. He's a great player.
He's a very good player. Nobody's ever heard me say anything else.
I don't agree with this either. Brandon Lewis says, I'll take Bo Nix over Jalen. Hurts looks autistic when he drops back to pass. Dude, he just was 25 to 32 for 290 against the Mike Tomlin-led defense when they took Saquon out of the game. Like, you might not think he's the greatest passer in the world, but what the fuck are you talking about? I'm sorry. What the fuck are you talking about? Did I not just watch what I watched versus Steelers?
Yeah, but no, I'm not. No, I'm not defending. I don't think Bo Nix is better than Jalen Hurts. Although, Bo's done a nice job of, and actually it's one of the great stories, to be honest, in the NFL, because he looked really bad early, and he's all of a sudden Sean Payton does, and we talk about organizations failing young quarterbacks. That's a very good situation for Bo Nix and being around a coach like Sean Payton. And there's some real positives, but yeah, I'm not going to go Bo Nix is having a better season than Jalen Hurts, but he's done a lot of nice things, but there's a lot of quarterbacks that have had better seasons than Jalen Hurts, and that's disappointing because that hasn't been the case. Last year when everybody thought he was garbage, he was the 8th graded quarterback in the NFL by PFF. In his near MVP season, he was 4th. In his first season as a starter, when he was just learning, he was 14th. This year, he's 19th. Now, you can believe that PFF has something against Jalen Hurts, and you can believe they're picking on Jalen Hurts. I don't care. Ostensibly, I've seen the guy every day of his career. I've been there for every single day of his career. He was better in 2021. He was better in 2022 significantly. He was one of the best quarterbacks in football. He was better in 2023 under Brian Johnson, when everybody thought this offense was garbage, than he was this year. Than he has been this year. Doesn't mean he can't turn it around. Doesn't mean he can't, as he just did, and he played at a high level. Doesn't mean that can't continue. But to this point of the season, the whole season, not 1 week, the whole season, his individual play has diminished.
A lot of that is because of what how the team is built and what they're doing for success. But I get it. You're not wrong about that. But I don't view that as much of an indictment on Hurts as some do at this point. Rashid checks in. Rashid, I appreciate it, man. Thank you, everybody, by the way, for the super chats. Means a lot. The support of the channel is massive, and I can't wait to do another giveaway today on the show. So hit that like button. We're up to 149. Can we get to 200 likes by the end of the show? We got about 18 minutes, and then I'll be on for a little post-Birds 365 edition, as we sometimes do. Rashid says, J-Mac, I love the take. Wash has a way better team this year than last year. I've seen Jalen in his second full year as a starter MVP level. We'll see Jayden next year. So I think Rashid's kind of agreeing with you. It's, is it fair to say too that there's no tape yet out on Jayden Daniels, so it could change in terms of how good he's playing?
Yeah,
right
people
now?
are going to make adjustments to him. Vic already has. He had a really difficult time with Vic. I expect him to have a really difficult time with Vic this weekend. But everybody doesn't have Vic Fangio. So I think the Eagles fans should take some solace in that. But yeah, I mean, if he continues to trend in the direction he's going, he's going to be a really good player for a really long time.
Yeah. These are the type of comments. This isn't a super chat, but I'm just going to rip this guy. These are the type of comments I hate. I swear. Kev says the all-star Avengers weapons have you brainwashed. Josh Allen makes Mac Hollins look like Megatron. I actually believe that there is a portion of fans that would rather have a quarterback that looks like that and lose than have a quarterback that looks like Jalen Hurts and win. Like, what are we fans of Jalen Hurts or are we fans of the Philadelphia Eagles? What the fuck are you talking about, dude? We're winning football games. Like,
well,
I don't understand that logic.
I'm not a fan of anybody, but
John's not a fan. I know.
Josh Allen.
Reason, but I don't. I mean, look, Josh Allen's the best. I think he's the best player in the world. I think he's better than Lamar Jackson. But
yeah, well, he's going to win the MVP. I mean, sorry, Saquon people. Josh Allen's wrapped it up. He's going to be the MVP. But
I'm not saying he's not great. I think he's phenomenal.
Yeah, he wins a lot. Is what I'm trying to say. So I would say that's a bad guy to use an example because he wins a lot too.
Yeah, with nothing, which is fine. But
no, he had a very good supporting cast. I think a lot of people looked at this year.
He's doing a lot with not a lot this year. But
I think a lot of people, that's the point. A lot of people thought, oh, Buffalo's going to take a downturn because they lost Diggs and Gabe Davis. And, they do, it's not like, by the way, that Matt Collins is their best receiver, but, there are plays, and obviously people are familiar with Mac from his days here. And by the way, he's gotten better. He's stuck around for a long time.
Yeah, it's impressive how long
he's stuck around for a long time. But their best receiver is Shakir. For people that don't know, has turned into a pretty damn good receiver. And then they got Amari Cooper and they have Keon Coleman, who's their rookie. They all contribute. And it's not certainly what they have here or certainly what they have in Minnesota or Cincinnati. But yeah, I mean, there's a fair point to say that Josh Allen elevates people. And I wouldn't disagree with that point. And he wins a ton, by the way, Josh Allen.
Brian checks in. We got to keep rolling. We got a bunch of supers. Only got 15 minutes left on the show. Big thanks to everybody for watching today. Let's get to 200 likes. Brian Pumper says, as a quarterback, name something Jalen Hurts is good at. You can't say intangibles or tush push. Well, I got plenty of things I think he's really freaking good at.
You can't say intangibles. First of all, why can't you say intangibles? Number one.
When they clearly matter. I mean, you're leading a group of grown professional men making millions of dollars. If you think intangibles don't matter.
Like the one thing I always point to, and I say it pretty good, and nobody listens because I hate Jalen because I won't admit he's the best quarterback who's ever lived. The one thing I always say is the relentlessness of his ability to put, as he describes it, plush bad stuff and immediately go back to the next play is so underrated. And that is an intangible. But it's an intangible that very few people have who ever played the position. Like when you see 95% of quarterbacks and they come out and they're like starting pitchers almost. They don't have it. They don't have their A stuff. You're like, oh, this is going to be a struggle. This is going to be a grind. And then you have Roger Clemens types who bite through it and find ways to win games. He's a Roger Clemens type. He is a grinder. Now, he might not have the A-level stuff of a Hall of Fame pitcher, but he is a grinder. He's going to find a way to freaking win and pull his team past the finish line. That's intangible. That's important. But as far as stuff, I mean, he's one of the best dual threat quarterbacks that ever lived. Ever. He is a pain in the ass to deal with as a defensive coordinator. Am I disappointed about the evolution of just purely the passing offense? Yes. But I mean, my God, to be able to default back to the college bullshit, which I hate aesthetically, I freely admit, but it's successful, because you're putting people in conflict. They don't know what to do. They don't know where the ball's going.
Successful in the NFL is successful in the NFL. It's not easy to do no matter what you're doing. Abe says, Got to give credit to Doug for taking the time to teach Jalen and to stop all those shitty turnovers. Also, credit to the O-line where everyone benefits. I think he's talking about Doug Nussmeier there, the quarterback coach.
Might be.
Yeah, look,
Yeah,
Jalen's, 26 touchdowns since the bye week and 3 turnovers total with only 1 interception. So he's doing what he needs to do within this system right now to win games, and there are 10 straight. So, like I said, I don't know. I mean, I see the deficiencies. I'm not blind, but I think he's clearly got enough to overcome them. John, any response to Abe?
Yeah, well, the turnovers has been a big thing. I think they went a little bit too far with it. I think they became too cautious for a while, and I think that was part of the reason the passing game was suffering. But when you're winning games, you tend not to fix what isn't broken. And that's where AJ got into the whole villain thing and said, if I got to be the villain, I'll be the villain. And look, we got to fix this shit. And even Jalen Hurts admitted it. And he said, sometimes it doesn't get you until it gets you, is essentially what he said. He's talking about the passing game.
Right.
You don't want to be there in the playoffs and have to pull it out and say it's going to be there. And last week he had after the Steelers game, compared it to water in the lawn. Sometimes you got to water the shit or it's going to die.
Yeah.
And they fixed it for 1 week. Let's see if it continues.
We'll see. Rashid checks in. They have devolved, but I don't think because of Jalen's talent. More so they didn't want to wait for the turnovers to correct. Jalen said it. He submitted. Good take there.
Yeah, I hated that word, by the way.
Yes, John did.
I wrote that because I think it said a lot. And I'm glad you brought it up, though, because I should have brought that up to Zander a little bit before when we were talking about the season and the devolving of the offense. Because, yeah, that is not a good word. And that's what he did. He submitted. Yeah. He doesn't want to play this way. He does not want to play this way.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you have I get it. I almost view that as a positive that he's willing to do it with the team he has around him. But I get it. Bird Gang says nobody in this fan base can accept the fact that our QB is average at best, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think he's above average. But
he's well above average.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
He's not average. He's having an average season.
There are areas of his game where I guess you could say he's average, but again,
he's having an average season. But this is, like I said, this is his 4th year as a starter. This is his worst season as a starter. So again, maybe you just chalk it up, and there's still time to go. There's still time to finish it out strongly. He's been an above average quarterback in 2021. He's been a great quarterback in 2022. He's been a really good quarterback in 2023, even though it seemed like nobody noticed. And this year he's gone down a little bit. Sometimes you just have up years and down years. This has been a little bit of a down year personally for him. And he's played, and maybe some of it has to do with the supporting cast and the way they played and all of that. Everything factors into it. But he's been an above average quarterback since he became the starter. And this is the first year it's regressed a little bit. And he's got to bounce back at the end of this season and next season.
Rashid checks in. It's a big reason Zander checked those numbers, and this year was so different from the last 2 years. It's not Jalen's talent. I guess that's a follow-up to what he said earlier about he submitted. Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, I think it's fair, Rashid. That's fine. Brian Pumper says, J-Mac got the Jalenites in shambles this morning. Keep cooking. Stop being mean to my quarterback, Brian says. All right, Brian. A-Team checks in. This is our winner yesterday. I put the picture up. I'll do it one more time. This is who I met up with yesterday. A-Team, it was great meeting you, brother. I love meeting the members. And here's the photo of me and A-Team who won our Grinch hoodie in honor of Big Sills being the Grinch. He checks in and says, thanks for the stuff, JAKIB family. My family was excited, and it turned them all onto the show. I think Vic Fangio is going to bottle up Daniels. I agree with your last part.
I agree with that.
Jason, if your family's listening, you got a great brother, son, husband, whatever he is to you. He's an awesome guy, and he's a big supporter of
Boy,
us.
it's not the day to turn in, because typically I'm much nicer to Jalen than Zander is.
That's all right. They get the truth here on Birds 365, no matter what. Good stuff there, Jason. 18, appreciate you checking in. Dank Bird Gang says, take away Jayden's best receivers for multiple games, then let's see how much better he's been.
Come on. Really? You want to go down that route? Because Jalen's got better fucking receivers than Jayden Daniels.
I think he's talking about just the games that they missed, I guess.
Well, yeah, they stink without AJ, and that's part of the reason I criticize the Eagles coaching staff for panicking and changing the whole fucking offense, because they lost 2 games without AJ Brown, and one of them without Devontae Smith, and one of them without Lane Johnson as well. Like, it was way too early to panic, but they did a little bit, and I thought that was way too soon. But yeah, I mean, I would not go the supporting cast route with Jayden Daniels, because it ain't as good.
Cameron checks in. What's up, Cameron? Appreciate you being here, man. He says, what do you guys make of the Eagles' blowouts being on the road? Home games have been kind of meh outside of Pitt, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Cleveland, and Washington. It's a good point. The number 1 seed's important, but is it dire for this team?
Well, not if they get the passing game going. All right, I'm going to upset people again. I'm upsetting people. Yeah, I don't think when the Eagles are clicking on all cylinders, they have the best home field advantage in football. When they're struggling, it can turn on them very, very quickly.
That's part of Philly, right?
That is part of Philly, but it also is not part of Detroit. It's not part of Minnesota. It's not part of Green Bay. Maybe it's just a Midwest thing. Maybe they're happy-go-lucky. I wouldn't say Detroit, but if the Eagles struggle, it turns on them quickly. So to your point of sometimes they play better on the road, yeah, I'm not that concerned about them going on the road if they're clicking offensively in the passing game is I think they'll be fine. But if they struggle at home, it can be difficult for them. Which they admit, they don't like to talk about it, but they admit it.
Ray Robb says, and John, I don't know if you know the answer to this. If the Eagles and Vikings win out, how is it that the Vikings get the 1 seed when we both will be 15-2 and they lost to the Rams and we didn't? I don't know. I don't know all the.
It goes to it'll go to strength of victory, and they will have a better strength of victory, which is, I forget, the second or third tiebreaker. And because understand, if they win out Minnesota, they're beating Green Bay, who's a 10-win team already. They're beating Detroit, who will be a minimum 12-win team, 13-win team, perhaps 14-win team at that stage. Whereas the Eagles would be beating, and Seattle, who's also a playoff level team. That's who they play over the final 3 weeks, and they're over 500. Whereas the Eagles would have the very good win over Washington, but then Dallas and the Giants, and the Giants have won, 2 games, or is it 3 games? So, yeah, you're muted, I think, Zander.
3, I think. Shitty fucking Giants.
But so that's why. It's unlikely to happen. Now, there are things like the Eagles could lose a game, the Vikings could lose a game, where it changes that impact. But if the Vikings win out, they will be the number 1 seed.
Good stuff there. Josh says, I just want to contribute. Josh, that's really dope, man. I appreciate the support of the channel. You guys have been on fire, man. It's really, really a lot of love. So thanks, everybody. Holly First says, I love Hurts, but we haven't seen much of that Super Bowl guy this year. Sunday was pretty great. Let's get more of that guy. I think that's fair. I think that's very fair.
Which I mean, if he plays like that, you're fine. If he plays like he did against Pittsburgh, you're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no issues there, but hasn't played like that. That's the first time we've seen it this year, really.
Right.
He had some big games early, but there were also the turnovers. So the Pittsburgh game is the standard. And the disappointing aspect, sort of like Bryce Huff, you're not going to see what people hoped or what the Eagles hoped in the evolution of the offense. That's for next year now. And I'll try it again.
Right. It's not a midseason fix.
Yeah. That stuff's not going to come, but doesn't mean you can't be effective.
Couple more here, John, real quick. Then we'll let you get out of here and get down there. You're going down to the NovaCare complex today. What do we got? Coordinators weren't. No, they're Jalen and Nick today, or Jalen? Just Jalen?
Excuse me. No, Jalen spoke yesterday. Nick spoke yesterday. Today's just practice and locker room.
Got it. Brian Pumper says, I've never seen a fan base champion a QB after one good performance. What's not one good performance? J-Mac got this dude's on a griddle. Jalen Knight's turning into crash outs. 46-19, Brian. That's not one performance, my friend. Neclo says, this nonsense of Pickett being able to win games reminds me of the narrative that Minshew could win with this team. He didn't. Agreed, Neclos. Fucking Pickett ain't winning shit.
Gardner started 2 games. He was very good in one, should have won it, very bad in the other. It's 2 games. I'm talking in a catastrophe. Like, you can't, first of all, you can't say Saquon Barkley is the best thing since sliced bread and not believe Gardner Minshew or Kenny Pickett or even Tanner McKee can't win games with the best offensive line and A.J. Brown and the play action game and all that stuff. It's not about Kenny Pickett. It's about the supporting cast. And they would be able to win games, not to the level they are, but yeah, they would be able to win games with Kenny Pickett, who has already won games with Pittsburgh. It's 14-10 in Pittsburgh. And he didn't have Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown and the best offensive line in football. So, yeah, I think that's bullshit.
B. Moore says, I'm starting to see a trend. People are starting to believe Big Sills' takes on Hurts. I could care less about looks, only care about wins. Well, B. Moore, this is not starting to believe. I mean, there's many people out there that have believed that for a long time. And where I'll push back is they can't handle when it's working. I mean, I'm fine to be critical of Hurts. I am critical of Hurts. John told you on this show, he had to walk me off the ledge. But when he does things that make you successful, or you can look at the full picture and say, it's working, right? I'm with you. I don't give a shit what it looks like. I really don't. But I get it. I get the conversation. I don't think.
I don't listen to anybody, so I'm not listening.
Yeah,
to
John
anybody.
is not in that camp. I don't think he's talking about you. I think he's talking about people in the chat. John says J-Mac Sills, Brian Humper will be guest of honor at the Crow Party on the 10th of February. Jalen's a winner. Boy, from your lips to God's ears, Eagletron. I would love a parade. I told Jason A-Team that when I met him yesterday. I'm like, boy, let's get a parade. We'll meet all the JAKIB people down here. J-Mac, why do you think Jalen nervously giggled when the reporter implied he was slow? I didn't see that.
Don't know what you're speaking of.
Jay Perfect became a member. That's dope. Jay Perfect, appreciate it. One more. Troy.
Slow in what way? As running slow?
I don't know what he means. I didn't see it. Troy Darnell says, I guess Jalen's floor is the Super Bowl. Yeah, maybe the floor is last year where he collapsed at the end of the year. But all right, that's all our super chats. We had a great.
By the way, I think Jalen Hurts played better last year than this year. But people can't, again, individual performance. He played better last season than he's played this season. But,
All right, John, your final thoughts on the show here. We're already over 10. I didn't realize how late it was already. Sometimes the time flies when you're having fun. I think we had some good debate today, good discussions today about the quarterback. Started to dive into that Eagles-Commanders game. It's going to be an interesting matchup. They got a pretty good offense, pretty good defense. Not a great running defense, but your final thoughts on today's show and just a preview of what you have going on.
Well, I would say today is an example of the bipolar nature of the week-to-week element of the NFL. Like, after Carolina, which was a very poor performance, I was talking people off ledges with Jalen Hurts. Now I got to walk people back off the balloon. after a good
Eddie,
performance.
John. That's what you are. That's why people love you.
The key is consistency from week to week to week. Hopefully the Eagles fix some things against Pittsburgh. Hopefully they gain some confidence. Hopefully they learn some things regarding, as I started the show, with tempo, empty sets, easy throws, get the quarterback in a rhythm early. Kellen Moore's a part of this well. I don't think he's done a good job of getting Jalen Hurts in a rhythm early in games. He was able to do that against Pittsburgh. Hopefully the light bulb went off, and hopefully they can continue to be that type of team down the stretch. To be honest, I think Saquon needs a break. I think he is banged up.
Yeah.
I think you can't just default to him at all times. So they need that complementary aspect, and hopefully they figured it out. But one game does not make that declarative. And this will be a good test, and a good team, but not a great team, the Washington Commanders.
All right, Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. We're looking forward to talking to you on a Football Friday tomorrow. Bring the heat. All right, Johnny Mac, we'll be waiting to talk to you, brother. We appreciate you doing it today. Travel safely to NovaCare, and we'll talk to you in the morning.
All right, thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks,
and
John.
good luck for whatever Zander's giving away.
All right, John, appreciate it. All right, there's Johnny Mac checking in on Birds 365.